The Pacific Ocean crashed against Coronado Beach with relentless fury as Lieutenant Sarah Martinez dragged herself from the frigid water, her lungs burning like molten fire. Salt water streamed from her combat uniform as she collapsed onto the sand, gasping for air that seemed to escape her grasp. Around her, 23 other SEAL candidates emerged from their 4-mile ocean swim with varying degrees of exhaustion, but none looked as broken as Sarah. "Martinez! Dead last again!" Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez's voice cut through the morning fog like a blade. 37 minutes. The standard is 32, and you missed it by a country mile. His weathered face showed no mercy as he towered over her prone form. In real combat, those 5 minutes could mean the difference between your team coming home alive or in body bags. Sarah struggled to her feet, sand sticking to her soaked uniform, her legs trembling from the grueling swim. This was her 6th week in the most elite military training program on Earth, and she was failing spectacularly. The 28-year-old former Marine Corps intelligence officer had arrived at Naval Special Warfare Training with an impressive record top of her class at Marine Officer Candidate School, decorated service in Afghanistan, and a master's degree in strategic intelligence. None of it mattered here. Form up for the obstacle course. Rodriguez barked, his eyes scanning the exhausted candidates. 2-mile run, then the O course. Standard time is 15 minutes total. Anyone over 20 minutes gets to repeat it until they pass out or pass the standard. As the group began their run along the beach, Sarah found herself immediately falling behind. Her shorter legs worked overtime to match the pace of her predominantly male counterparts, each step sending shockwaves through her already fatigued muscles. Petty Officer Jackson, a former Army Ranger, glanced back at her with what might have been sympathy or pity. "Come on, Martinez," he called over his shoulder. "Stay with the pack." But Sarah couldn't stay with the pack. By mile 1, she was 20 yards behind. By mile 2, the gap had grown to 50 yards, and she could hear Rodriguez's disapproving growls, even over the sound of her own labored breathing. Her combat boots felt like concrete blocks, and each step on the soft sand was a battle against gravity and her own limitations. The obstacle course loomed ahead like an instrument of torture rope climbs, wall scaling, cargo net traversals, and the dreaded dirty name crawl under barbed wire through mud. Sarah watched her teammates attack each obstacle with fluid precision, their movements economical and powerful. When her turn came, she approached the first rope climb with grim determination. Halfway up the 30-foot rope, her grip failed. She slid down, rope burns searing through her gloves and into her palms. A metallic taste of blood filled her mouth as she bit her tongue during the jarring impact with the ground. Around her, she could hear the subtle sounds of frustration from her teammates' sighs, shuffling feet, averted gazes. They weren't cruel, but they were losing patience. "Again, Martinez," Rodriguez commanded. "You don't quit until you ring that bell at the top." Her second attempt was worse than the first. Her forearms screamed in agony, her grip strength completely depleted from the morning swim. She made it barely 10 feet before sliding down again, this time landing hard on her back. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs, and for a moment, she lay staring up at the gray sky, wondering what the hell she was doing there. Seaman Kowalski, a 22-year-old former college football player from Ohio, extended his hand to help her up. "You okay, Lieutenant?" "I'm fine," Sarah lied, accepting his assistance. But she wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. She was holding back an entire class of elite warriors, men who had sacrificed everything for a chance at earning the SEAL Trident. Men whose lives might one day depend on her competence and strength. The third attempt at the rope climb was successful, but it took her nearly 4 minutes twice as long as the standard. By the time she completed the entire obstacle course, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, and her teammates had been waiting for over 10 minutes. She could see the calculation in their eyes. In real combat, 10 minutes was an eternity. 10 minutes was long enough for the enemy to reposition, reinforce, or simply disappear. During the team leadership rotation that afternoon, Sarah's failures multiplied exponentially. As the designated team leader for a simulated beach reconnaissance mission, she was supposed to guide her 6-man team through enemy territory, gather intelligence, and extract without detection. It should have been her element intelligence. Gathering was her specialty in the Marine Corps. Instead, it became a disaster of epic proportions. "Martinez, your navigation is off by 200 meters, whispered Petty Officer Chun, the team's point man, through their communication system. "We're heading straight into the enemy patrol route." Sarah stared at her compass and map, confusion clouding her tactical thinking. The stress of physical exhaustion was affecting her cognitive abilities, something that had never happened during her Marine Corps service. "No, I've got us on the correct azimuth," she insisted, but doubt crept into her voice. "With all due respect, ma'am, I can see the opposing force directly ahead," Chun replied, his tone respectful but urgent. She was wrong. The simulated enemy force spotted them within minutes, and her team was eliminated in a withering crossfire of paint. Rounds? As they conducted the after-action review, Sarah felt the weight of 6 pairs of eyes upon her, measuring, evaluating, and finding her wanting. Leadership failure, Rodriguez noted in his evaluation clipboard. Poor navigation, compromised decision-making. Under stress, inability to adapt to changing tactical situations. His pen scratched across the paper like nails on a chalkboard. Recommendation: remedial training in basic land navigation and small unit tactics. That evening, as Sarah sat in her Spartan barracks room, she stared at a letter from her younger sister back in Texas. "Everyone here is so proud of you, Sarah. Dad keeps telling everyone at the VFW about his daughter who's going to be a Navy SEAL. You're breaking barriers and showing the world that women can do anything." The letter felt like a lead weight in her hands. She wasn't breaking barriers, she was reinforcing them. Every failure, every last place finish, every moment of weakness was ammunition for those who believed women didn't belong in special operations. She thought about the other female candidates who had dropped out in previous weeks. Lieutenant Commander Adams, who quit during Hell Week preparation. Ensign Foster, who left after repeatedly failing the physical screening tests. Petty Officer Williams, who was dropped for medical reasons after a training injury. Maybe they were the smart ones. Maybe they recognized something Sarah was too stubborn to see. Through her window, she could see the lights of San Diego twinkling across the bay, a reminder of the normal world that existed beyond the brutal crucible of SEAL training. Families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. People were living ordinary lives without the constant threat of failure hanging over their heads like a sword. Sarah pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found her Marine Corps mentor, Colonel Patricia Hayes, the woman who had encouraged her to pursue special operations training in the first place. Her finger hovered over the call button. One phone call could end this nightmare. One conversation could restore her dignity and self-respect. Instead, she set the phone aside and opened her tactical manual. Tomorrow's training schedule included a night navigation exercise, followed by a timed combat swim. 2 more opportunities to fail, 2 more chances to let down her teammates, 2 more ways to prove that some barriers existed for good reasons. But something deep inside Sarah Martinez, call it Marine Corps pride, stubborn determination, or simple refusal to quit, wouldn't let her make that phone call. Not yet. Not tonight. As she studied the pages of tactical doctrine by lamplight, Sarah had no idea that someone else was studying her just as intently, and that her pattern of failures was about to lead to the most unconventional order in SEAL training history. The abandoned warehouse in the training facility's urban combat zone reeked of stale smoke and concrete dust. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez crouched behind a rusted shipping container, her heart hammering against her ribs as she studied the tactical situation unfolding before her. This was it, the culminating exercise of Week 8, a complex hostage rescue scenario that would determine whether her team advanced to the next phase of SEAL training or faced remedial instruction. "Alpha Team, this is Martinez," she whispered into her throat microphone, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "I have eyes on the target building. 4 tangos visible on the ground floor. Unknown number of hostages in the northeast corner." Through her night vision goggles, warehouse looked like a green-tinted maze of obstacles and death traps. Somewhere inside that building, role-playing instructors held mock hostages while other instructors played enemy combatants armed with paint-marking weapons. One wrong move, one tactical miscalculation, and those paint rounds would simulate very real casualties. "Copy that, Alpha 6, came the voice of Petty Officer Chun, her point man. "Bravo Team is in position on the west side. Charlie Team has overwatch from the water tower, waiting for your go signal." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, running through the tactical decision matrix she'd memorized from countless hours of study. The mission briefing had been clear. 3 civilian hostages held by an unknown number of enemy combatants. Building cleared within 12 minutes. 0 acceptable losses. In theory, it was straightforward. In practice, with lives hanging. In the balance, even simulated lives, every choice carried tremendous weight. "All teams, this is Alpha 6, Sarah transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "We're going with a simultaneous 3-point breach. Alpha Team takes the front entrance. Bravo flanks from the west loading dock. Charlie provides sniper overwatch and blocks northern egress routes." It was textbook tactics, exactly what the manuals recommended for this type of scenario. Sarah had studied every case study, memorized every urban combat principle taught at the Marine Corps' infantry officer course. On paper, her plan was flawless. The execution, however, was catastrophic. "Breach, breach, breach," Sarah commanded, and hell erupted inside the warehouse. A first mistake became apparent within seconds. Sarah had miscalculated the enemy's strength instead. Of the 4 combatants she'd observed, there were actually 8, with 4 more positioned on a second-floor catwalk that her reconnaissance had missed. As Alpha Team charged through the front entrance, they were immediately caught in a devastating crossfire. Contact front. Multiple tangos on the upper level. Seaman Kowalski's voice crackled through the radio before a paint round marked him as a casualty. The simulation's electronic sensors immediately broadcast his death to all participants, accompanied by the harsh buzz that indicated a friendly Kia. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process multiple streams of information simultaneously. Radio chatter flooded her headset teams, calling out enemy positions, requesting medical evacuation for wounded, reporting ammunition status. But instead of the clear tactical picture she needed to command effectively, the information became an overwhelming tsunami of voices and static. "Alpha 6, this is Bravo 2. Petty Officer Jackson's urgent voice cut through the chaos. "We're pinned down at the west entrance. Heavy resistance, can't advance without support." Simultaneously, Staff Sergeant Williams from Charlie Team reported, "In Alpha 6, I have a shot on 2 tangos, but your Alpha Team is in my line of fire. Need you to adjust position for clear shooting lanes." This was where Sarah's inexperience in combat leadership became devastatingly apparent. In her Marine Corps intelligence role, she had analyzed countless tactical scenarios and provided strategic recommendations to field commanders. But she had never been the one making split-second life-or-death decisions while under fire. The theoretical knowledge that filled her head seemed useless when faced with the brutal reality of tactical command. Alpha Team, fall back to cover positions, Sarah ordered, but her timing was catastrophically wrong. As her men retreated, they exposed themselves to the second-floor shooters she had failed to identify. Paint rounds splattered across their uniforms in rapid succession. 3 more casualties in as many seconds. Jesus Christ, Martinez. Chief Rodriguez's voice boomed across the training area as he observed from the control booth. You just got half your team killed. But the nightmare was far from over. In her panic to salvage the mission, Sarah made an even worse decision. Bravo Team, advance through the west entrance now. Charlie Team, lay down suppressing fire on all visible targets. It was a tactical disaster of epic proportions. Bravo Team's advance put them directly in the path of Charlie Team's suppressing fire, creating a friendly fire incident that killed 2 more operators. Simultaneously, Sarah's failure to coordinate with her sniper team resulted in Charlie Team accidentally engaging the room containing the hostages. The exercise concluded with devastating finality 12 minutes later. Final casualty count: 6 SEAL operators dead, all 3 hostages killed by friendly fire, and the enemy combatants successfully escaped through exit routes that Sarah had failed to block. Sarah sat in the post-mission briefing room as chief. Rodriguez methodically dissected her failures. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the tactical map spread on the table, each red X marking a casualty that existed because of her incompetence. Failure to properly reconnaissance the target. Rodriguez read from his evaluation sheet, his voice clinical and merciless. Inadequate understanding of friendly capabilities and positioning. Poor communication protocols resulting in blue-on-blue engagements. Mission failure with 100% friendly casualties and 100% hostage casualties. Around the table, her teammates sat in uncomfortable silence. These were good men, elite warriors who had sacrificed years of their lives for the opportunity to earn the SEAL Trident. Petty Officer Chun had turned down a promotion to join SEAL training. Staff Sergeant Williams had left behind a pregnant wife for 6 months to pursue his dream of special operations. Seaman Kowalski had survived 2 deployments with the Marines before attempting this ultimate challenge. Now they were all staring at their team leader, the woman whose tactical incompetence had just killed them all in a training exercise. The weight of their disappointment was crushing. In real combat, Martinez, Rodriguez continued, his weathered face showing no emotion. These wouldn't be paint rounds marking casualties. These would be mothers losing sons, wives losing husbands, children growing up without fathers. Every decision you make carries that weight. Every mistake you commit has that consequence. Petty Officer Jackson, normally one of the more supportive team members, couldn't meet her eyes. Ma'am, with all due respect, he said quietly, maybe you should consider whether you're ready for this level of responsibility. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had commanded Marines in Afghanistan, had been responsible for intelligence operations that saved countless American lives. But this was different. This required a type of tactical leadership that seemed beyond her capabilities. That night, alone in her barracks room, Sarah stared at the official training evaluation form lying on her desk. The checkbox marked "Recommend for dismissal from training" seemed to glow under the desk lamp. Chief Rodriguez hadn't checked it yet, but she could see the hesitation in his eyes during the debrief. Her laptop was open to a news article about women in combat roles, featuring a photograph of her from a Marine Corps promotion ceremony 6 months earlier. The headline read, "Female Marines break new ground in special operations training." The comment section below was filled with heated debate about women's capabilities in elite military units. Sarah realized with growing horror that her failures weren't just personal. They were ammunition for every person who believed women didn't belong in special operations. Every mistake she made was proof, in their minds, that biology determined capability. Every tactical error she committed reinforced stereotypes that other women would spend years trying to overcome. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through missed calls from her family. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had called 3 times. Her sister had sent encouraging text messages. Her Marine Corps mentor, Colonel Hayes, had left a voicemail asking about her progress. None of them knew she was failing. None of them knew that their daughter, sister, and protégé was about to become a cautionary tale about the limits of female capability in warfare. As Sarah sat in the silence of her room, she had no way of knowing that her pattern of failures was being analyzed by someone with a very different perspective on leadership and capability. Captain James Mitchell had been watching every exercise, taking notes on every decision, and forming a theory about Sarah Martinez that would soon change everything. Captain James Mitchell stood motionless in the observation deck, overlooking the tactical training facility, his weathered hands gripping the metal railing as he watched Lieutenant Sarah Martinez conduct what might be her final after-action review. The 42-year-old commanding officer had seen thousands of candidates pass through SEAL training during his 15-year career in special operations, but something about Martinez's systematic self-destruction fascinated him in a way that defied conventional military wisdom. Below in the briefing room, Sarah sat alone at the tactical planning table, surrounded by maps, satellite imagery, and casualty reports from her disastrous hostage rescue simulation. While her teammates had retreated to the barracks to nurse their wounds, both physical and psychological, she remained hunched over the materials, methodically analyzing every decision that had led to catastrophe. Mitchell had been observing Sarah's performance since her arrival 8 weeks earlier, initially drawn by the historical significance of her presence. The first woman to reach this stage of SEAL training deserved scrutiny, if only to document the experiment for future policy decisions. But what he discovered during his observation went far beyond gender politics or social engineering. "Sir, are you planning to recommend Martinez for dismissal?" Chief Rodriguez appeared beside him, holding a thick folder of evaluation reports. "Her performance metrics are consistently below standard, and today's exercise was ... well. You saw it." Mitchell didn't respond immediately. Instead, he continued watching Sarah through the one-way glass as she traced tactical movements on a detailed floor plan of the warehouse. Her finger moved with surgical precision, identifying each decision point where the mission had gone wrong. She wasn't making excuses or shifting blame. She was conducting a forensic analysis of her own failures with the intensity of a detective investigating a crime scene. "Rodriguez, how many years have you been training SEALs?" Mitchell asked, his eyes never leaving Sarah. 14 years, sir. I've seen over 2,000 candidates come through this program. And in all that time, how many have conducted post-mission analysis like that?" Mitchell nodded toward Sarah, who was now sketching improved tactical approaches on a separate piece of paper. Rodriguez followed his gaze and frowned. "Sir, with respect, analyzing failures doesn't make up for creating them in the first place. She got her entire team killed today." Mitchell finally turned from the window, his steel-gray eyes reflecting decades of combat experience across 3 theaters of operation. "Tell me something, Chief. What did you notice about Martinez's performance? During the actual firefight? She made multiple tactical errors, failed to adapt to changing situations, and demonstrated poor command presence under pressure." Rodriguez recited from memory. "I'm not asking about her mistakes," Mitchell interrupted. "I'm asking what you observed about her situational awareness during the engagement." Rodriguez paused, clearly puzzled by the question. "Sir, I'm not sure I understand." Mitchell turned back to the window, where Sarah was now creating a detailed timeline of radio communications from the failed mission. During that 12-minute clusterfuck, Martinez tracked the positions of 18 different personnel, 6 on her team, 8 enemy combatants, 3 hostages, and 1 command observer. She maintained awareness of ammunition status for 3 separate units, monitored radio frequencies across 4 different nets, and processed incoming intelligence reports from multiple sources simultaneously. But sir, that situational awareness didn't translate into effective leadership. No, it didn't, Mitchell agreed. But consider this. How many of our graduates could process that volume of information while making tactical decisions under stress? How many could maintain that level of cognitive awareness while being shot at? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, clearly reconsidering his assessment. Below them, Sarah had moved to a whiteboard and was creating a complex diagram showing optimal communication protocols for multi-team operations. Mitchell pulled out his own folder, Sarah's complete military record, which he had been studying for weeks. Marine Corps Intelligence Officer Course. Graduated first in class. Advanced Strategic Analysis. 98th percentile. Combat Intelligence Certification. Perfect scores across all metrics. 2 deployments to Afghanistan were her intelligence analysis. Directly contributed to the success of over 40 special operations missions. Sir, intelligence analysis and tactical leadership are completely different skill sets. Are they? Mitchell interrupted. Or have we been so focused on one model of leadership that we failed to recognize others? The captain opened Sarah's file to a page filled with commendations from Marine Corps commanders. Colonel Patterson from 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force wrote this. Lieutenant Martinez possesses an extraordinary ability to synthesize complex battlefield information and provide actionable intelligence that has saved countless American lives. Her strategic thinking and analytical capabilities are among the finest I have encountered in 23 years of service. Rodriguez studied the commendation letter, his expression thoughtful. Sir, what are you suggesting? Mitchell closed the file and returned his attention to Sarah, who was now creating what appeared to be a comprehensive training manual based on lessons learned from her failures. I'm suggesting that we might be trying to force a master strategist into the role of a field tactician, and wondering why she's failing. But sir, SEAL team leaders need to be able to command in the field. They need to make split-second tactical decisions under fire, do they? Mitchell's question hung in the air like a challenge. Or do they need to ensure mission success through whatever means necessary? The captain pulled out his smartphone and scrolled through photos from his most recent deployment to Syria. My last mission overseas, we were tasked with eliminating a high-value target in downtown Aleppo. Our tactical approach was planned by a brilliant analyst who never left the forward operating base. She coordinated drone surveillance, managed human intelligence assets, tracked enemy movement patterns, and guided our team through the most complex urban environment I've ever operated in. He showed Rodriguez a photo of his team celebrating mission success. 0 casualties, target eliminated, secondary objectives achieved ahead of schedule. The analyst who made it possible never fired a shot or breached a single door. But without her strategic coordination, half my team would have come home in body bags. Rodriguez stared at the photo, clearly processing the implications. Sir, are you saying Martinez might be better suited for strategic coordination rather than direct tactical leadership? I'm saying that modern special operations requires cognitive capabilities that we've never properly recognized or developed, Mitchell replied. We've been so focused on physical performance and traditional leadership models that we might be wasting extraordinary intellectual resources. Below them, Sarah had filled 3 whiteboards with tactical analysis, communication protocols, and strategic recommendations. Her work showed a level of comprehensive thinking that impressed even Mitchell. a veteran of countless complex operations. "Chief, look at what she's produced in the last 2 hours." Mitchell pointed to Sarah's extensive analysis. "She's identified 17 specific tactical improvements, developed new communication protocols that would prevent friendly fire incidents, and created contingency plans for scenarios we hadn't even considered. How many of our honor graduates could produce analysis of that quality?" Rodriguez studied Sarah's work through the observation window, his expression gradually shifting from skepticism to recognition. "Sir, if what you're suggesting is correct, then we've been evaluating Martinez using the wrong metrics entirely." "Exactly," Mitchell nodded. "We've been asking her to be someone she's not, instead of finding out who she actually is." The captain made a decision that would reverberate through the special operations community for years to come. "Chief, I want you to schedule a private meeting with Martinez for 0800 tomorrow morning. Don't tell her what it's about, just that the commanding officer wants to see her." "Sir, are you planning to dismiss her from the program?" Mitchell smiled for the first time in weeks, his mind already formulating an unprecedented experiment in military leadership development. "Quite the opposite, Chief. I'm planning to give her the first order that might actually make sense." As Rodriguez departed to deliver the message, Mitchell remained at the observation window, watching Sarah continue her meticulous analysis. Tomorrow morning, he would propose something that had never been attempted in SEAL training history: a complete redefinition of what leadership could look like in the modern battlefield. The question wasn't whether Sarah Martinez could become a traditional SEAL team leader. The question was whether the SEAL community was ready to evolve beyond traditional models of leadership to embrace the cognitive warfare demands of the 21st century. By tomorrow evening, they would both have their answer. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez sat rigidly in the chair outside Captain Mitchell's office, her dress uniform immaculate despite the tremor in her hands. The polished nameplate on the door seemed to mock her as she stared at it. Captain James Mitchell, Commanding Officer, Naval Special Warfare Training. In 15 minutes, her military career would likely be over, and she would join the long list of candidates who had failed to meet the impossible standards of SEAL training. The hallway was eerily quiet, except for the rhythmic tick of an institutional clock and the distant sound of morning PT echoing from the training grounds. Sarah had barely slept, spending the night rehearsing what she would say when Captain Mitchell delivered the inevitable news. She had prepared speeches about understanding the decision, accepting responsibility for her failures, and requesting a transfer back to Marine Corps intelligence with dignity intact. What she hadn't prepared for was the complete upheaval of everything she thought she knew about military leadership. "Martinez, the captain will see you now," the administrative petty officer announced, opening the office door with military precision. Sarah entered the Spartan office, noting the walls lined with commendations, unit photographs, and maps from various deployments. Captain Mitchell sat behind his desk, her training file spread open before him like evidence in a court-martial. His steel-gray eyes studied her with an intensity that seemed to penetrate straight through her carefully constructed composure. "Sit down, Lieutenant," Mitchell commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had led men through the darkest corners of modern warfare. Sarah took the offered chair, her back straight and eyes forward in textbook military bearing. She waited for the formal dismissal, the polite explanation about how SEAL training wasn't for everyone, the reassurance that her failure didn't reflect on her worth as a Marine or as a person. Instead, Captain Mitchell closed her file and leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression that was impossible to read. "Martinez, you're done," he said, and Sarah felt her heart sink like a stone in cold water. "You're done trying to be something you're not." The words hit her like physical blows, confirming her worst fears. She had failed not just as a SEAL candidate, but as a representative of every woman who would follow in her footsteps. "Sir, I understand the decision, and I accept full responsibility." "I'm not finished," Mitchell interrupted, his voice cutting through her prepared speech. Like a blade. "You're going to stop trying to lead from the front and start leading from where you're strongest." Sarah blinked, confusion replacing despair. This wasn't the dismissal speech she had expected. "Sir, I don't understand." Mitchell stood and moved to a tactical map mounted on his wall, pointing to various operational zones marked with red pins. "Martinez, what do you see when you look at this map?" Sarah approached the map, her analytical mind automatically engaging despite her emotional turmoil. "Sir, I see a complex operational environment with multiple threat vectors, civilian population centers, natural choke points, and overlapping fields of fire. The terrain suggests urban warfare with significant intelligence requirements for successful mission planning." "Exactly," Mitchell nodded. "And how would you approach gathering intelligence for operations in this environment?" "Multi-source intelligence collection, sir. Human intelligence assets for local population sentiment, signals intelligence for enemy communications, imagery intelligence for movement patterns, and real-time battlefield intelligence for tactical adjustments." Sarah answered automatically, her mind shifting into the analytical mode that had made her exceptional in Marine Corps intelligence. "Now," Mitchell said, moving to another map, "tell me how you would coordinate a 6-team special operations mission in this same environment." Sarah studied the map for several minutes, her mind processing multiple variables simultaneously. "Sir, I would establish a centralized command post with real-time communication links to all teams. Primary focus would be intelligence fusion, combining all available information sources to provide tactical teams with actionable intelligence. Coordination would include movement deconfliction, target prioritization based on intelligence updates, and adaptive mission planning based on changing battlefield conditions." Mitchell returned to his desk, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Martinez, in 8 weeks of SEAL training, you failed every physical leadership test and struggled with direct tactical command. But you just outlined an operational coordination approach that would make most field commanders envious." Sarah felt a flicker of hope, but confusion dominated her thoughts. "Sir, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we've been asking the wrong questions," Mitchell replied, pulling out a thick folder she hadn't noticed before. "We've been asking whether you can lead a 6-man team through a doorway under fire. We should have been asking whether you can coordinate multiple teams across complex operational environments using superior intelligence analysis and strategic thinking." He opened the folder, revealing detailed analysis of modern special operations missions from the past 5 years. "Martinez, look at these after-action reports. Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. Counterterrorism operations across 3 continents. Notice a pattern?" Sarah examined the documents, her trained eye immediately identifying common themes. "Sir, mission. Success increasingly depends on intelligence coordination and multi-team synchronization rather than individual team tactical performance." "Correct," Mitchell confirmed. "Modern special operations isn't about lone wolves kicking down doors. It's about cognitive warfare, processing massive amounts of information, coordinating complex assets, and making strategic decisions that keep multiple teams alive while accomplishing critical objectives." The captain stood and moved to his window, looking out at the training grounds where new candidates were struggling through morning PT. "Martinez, I'm going to give you an order that's never been given in SEAL training history. You're going to stop trying to be a traditional team leader and start being what you actually are, an intelligence coordinator and tactical analyst." Sarah's mind raced as she processed the implications. "Sir, that's not how SEAL training works. The program is designed to produce tactical team leaders who can operate independently in small units. The program was designed for wars we fought 20 years ago, Mitchell replied, turning back to face her. I'm redesigning it for wars we're fighting now. He pulled out official orders that had clearly been prepared in advance. Effective. Immediately, you're assigned as intelligence coordinator and tactical analyst for Training Unit Alpha. Your mission is to provide real-time intelligence support, coordinate multi-team operations, and develop strategic approaches to complex scenarios. You will not lead point, you will not be first through the door, and you will not compete in traditional physical leadership roles. Sarah stared at the orders, hardly believing what she was reading. Sir, the other instructors will never accept. It's completely unprecedented. The other instructors work for me, Mitchell replied with finality. And precedent is something we create, not something we follow. He moved to his desk and pulled out one final document, a memorandum, addressed to Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters. I'm recommending a fundamental revision to SEAL training protocols based on the cognitive demands of modern warfare. You, Martinez, are going to be the proof of concept. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror as she realized the magnitude of what was being offered. Sir, what if I fail in this new role as well? Mitchell's expression softened slightly, revealing a hint of the mentor beneath the commanding officer. Martinez, you've been failing because we've been asking you to play a game with the wrong rules. Now we're going to change the game. He extended his hand in an unprecedented gesture of partnership. The question isn't whether you can succeed as a traditional SEAL team leader. The question is whether you can help us redefine what SEAL leadership looks like in the 21st century. As Sarah shook his hand, she realized that everything was about to change, not just for her, but potentially for the entire Special Operations community. Captain Mitchell wasn't just giving her a second chance. He was betting the future of SEAL training on a completely revolutionary approach to military leadership. Outside the office window, morning training continued as it had for decades. But inside that room, the seeds of transformation had just been planted in the most unlikely soil imaginable. The transformation began at 06:00 hours the following morning, but Lieutenant Sarah Martinez had been awake since 03:00, her mind racing with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. Captain Mitchell's revolutionary order had shattered every assumption she held about her place in SEAL training, and now she sat in the newly established Intelligence Coordination Center, a hastily converted classroom equipped with multiple computer terminals, communication arrays, and tactical display screens. For the first time in 8 weeks, Sarah wasn't standing in formation with her teammates, dreading another physical challenge that would expose her limitations. Instead, she was surrounded by the tools of modern warfare intelligence, real-time satellite feeds, encrypted communication networks, digital mapping systems, and data analysis software that reminded her of her glory days in Marine Corps intelligence. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez entered the ICC with undisguised skepticism etched across his weathered features. Martinez, I want to be clear about something, he said, his voice carrying the weight of 14 years training elite warriors. Captain Mitchell may have given you this opportunity, but you still have to prove you belong here. One mistake that gets a team killed, even in training, and you're out. Sarah nodded, understanding the stakes perfectly. Understood, Chief. What's today's scenario? Rodriguez handed her a mission briefing folder with classified training use only stamped across the cover. Multi-team urban reconnaissance. 3. 6-man teams, 12-hour operation. Complex urban environment with civilian populations and unknown enemy strength. Your job is to coordinate intelligence gathering and provide tactical support to keep everyone alive and mission objectives achieved. As Sarah opened the briefing, she felt a familiar surge of excitement, the same intellectual adrenaline rush she had experienced during her most challenging Marine Corps assignments. The scenario was beautifully complex. A simulated terrorist cell operating in a mock Middle Eastern city, complete with role-playing civilians, enemy combatants, and neutral observers who could become hostile under certain conditions. Teams Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie will deploy at 0800, Rodriguez continued. You'll coordinate from here, using all available intelligence assets. Success metrics are simple. Identify terrorist leadership, locate weapons caches, extract actionable intelligence, and bring everyone home alive. For the first time since arriving at SEAL training, Sarah smiled with genuine confidence. Chief, I'll need access to all communication frequencies, real-time drone feeds, and direct coordination authority with team leaders. You've got it. Rodriguez replied, though his expression remained doubtful. Don't make me regret this, Martinez. As the teams deployed into the urban training facility, Sarah's transformation from failed tactical leader to strategic coordinator was immediate and dramatic. She established herself at the central command station, surrounded by 6 monitors displaying different intelligence feeds, and began orchestrating the most complex training operation she had ever managed. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, Sarah's voice was calm and authoritative as she spoke into her headset microphone. I have you on visual approaching the market district. Thermal imaging shows civilian population. Density increasing. Recommend adjusting your patrol route to avoid unnecessary exposure. Through the drone feed, she watched Alpha Team's point man, Petty Officer Chun, smoothly alter his path based on her guidance. For the first time in weeks, Chun's voice carried respect rather than resignation when he responded, Copy that, Overwatch. Your intel is spot on. We can see the crowd you're tracking. Simultaneously, Sarah was monitoring Bravo Team's approach to a suspected weapons cache while tracking Charlie. Team's movement through what intelligence suggested was enemy territory. Her mind processed multiple information streams with the efficiency of a supercomputer. Radio intercepts indicating enemy awareness of team movements, thermal signatures suggesting concealed positions, movement patterns of role-playing civilians that might indicate enemy sympathizers. Bravo Team, halt your advance, Sarah commanded urgently, studying a pattern in the thermal imaging that had triggered her analytical instincts. I'm seeing heat signatures in Building 47 that suggest prepared positions. Recommend alternate. Approach via the northern alley. You'll have better concealment and flanking opportunities. Staff Sergeant Williams, Bravo Team's leader, immediately acknowledged her guidance. Overwatch, we copy. Can you provide real-time updates on those positions while we reposition? Affirmative, Bravo. I have continuous eyes on target. You'll have a clear approach if you move now. Enemy positions are focused on the southern approach you were taking. What happened next was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during her previous training failures. As Bravo Team executed her recommended approach, they achieved complete surprise on the mock weapons cache, neutralizing enemy guards and securing critical intelligence without a single casualty. The success was directly attributable to Sarah's analytical coordination. She had seen patterns and possibilities that ground-level operators couldn't perceive. But the real test came when Charlie Team encountered unexpected resistance during the reconnaissance of suspected terrorist leadership. Overwatch, this is Charlie 6, came the urgent voice of Seaman Kowalski. We're taking effective fire from multiple positions. Request immediate support and guidance for withdrawal. Sarah's mind shifted into overdrive, processing tactical information with lightning speed. She had thermal imaging showing enemy positions, communication intercepts indicating reinforcement movements, and real-time positioning data for all friendly forces. More importantly, she could see tactical opportunities that individual team leaders couldn't perceive while under fire. Charlie Team, I have your position. Do not withdraw, you're about to have support, Sarah commanded with authority that surprised even herself. Alpha Team, alter your mission. Charlie is in contact 2 blocks northeast of your position. I'm coordinating a flanking maneuver that will give you tactical advantage. She rapidly analyzed the urban terrain, identifying approach routes that would allow Alpha Team to attack enemy positions from an unexpected direction, while Charlie Team provided fixing fire to keep enemies focused forward. Alpha Team, proceed north on Market Street, then east on Abdul Rahman Avenue. You'll have clear approach to enemy rear positions. Charlie Team, maintain current position and continue engagement. Help is coming. The coordination was flawless. Using Sarah's intelligence guidance, Alpha Team moved through the urban maze with surgical precision, approaching enemy positions from an angle that provided complete tactical surprise. Meanwhile, Sarah provided real-time updates to Charlie Team about enemy movements and positioning, allowing them to maintain effective fire while minimizing their exposure. Contact, enemy neutralized. Alpha Team reported as their flanking maneuver succeeded perfectly. Charlie Team, you're clear to advance. All hostile positions eliminated, Sarah confirmed, watching thermal signatures indicating mission success across all objectives. The 12-hour operation concluded with unprecedented results. All intelligence objectives achieved, all weapons caches located and secured, terrorist leadership identified and tracked, and 0 casualties across all 3 teams. More remarkably, the mission had been completed 4 hours ahead of schedule, with tactical efficiency that exceeded anything achieved in recent training cycles. As the teams returned to base, Sarah realized she had been so focused on the intellectual challenge that she had forgotten to be nervous, forgotten to doubt herself, forgotten to worry about failing. For the first time since arriving at SEAL training, she had operated in her element, processing complex information, identifying patterns and opportunities, and making strategic decisions that saved lives and accomplished critical objectives. Chief Rodriguez entered the ICC as Sarah was completing her after-action analysis, his expression no longer skeptical, but genuinely impressed. "Martinez," he said quietly, "that was the most effective training coordination I've seen in my 14 years here. 0 casualties, all objectives achieved, perfect tactical execution." Sarah looked up from her reports, feeling a satisfaction she hadn't experienced since her early days in Marine Corps intelligence. "Chief, this is what I was meant to do. This is where I belong." As news of the training success spread through the SEAL community, Sarah had no idea that she had just demonstrated the future of special operations coordination, and that her success would fundamentally change how the military thought about leadership, capability, and the evolution of warfare itself. The week-long field exercise known as Operation Broken Arrow had earned its fearsome reputation over 15 years of SEAL training history. Designed to simulate the most complex and dangerous scenarios special operations teams might face in real combat, it typically resulted in 90% casualty rates, mission failures, and the psychological breaking point for even the most elite candidates. Previous training cycles had seen teams emerge from the 7-day crucible with shattered confidence, multiple injuries, and a sobering understanding of their limitations under extreme stress. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez sat in the Mobile Intelligence Coordination Platform, a specially equipped command vehicle positioned 3 miles from the primary training area, as she prepared to guide her teams through what many considered the most challenging military training exercise in the world. For the first time since beginning SEAL training, she felt the electric anticipation of intellectual combat rather than the dread of physical inadequacy. The scenario was brutally realistic. A terrorist organization had seized control of a Middle Eastern city, taking civilian hostages, establishing weapons caches throughout the urban area, and threatening to execute captives unless their demands were met. Sarah's 3 SEAL teams had 7 days to infiltrate the city, Gather intelligence on terrorist leadership, locate and rescue hostages, neutralize enemy threats, and extract without detection all, while operating in an environment designed to test every aspect of their training. Overwatch, this is Alpha 6, came the voice of Petty Officer Chun through encrypted communications. We're in position for initial reconnaissance. Request intelligence update on enemy patrol patterns. Sarah's fingers danced across multiple keyboards as she accessed real-time intelligence feeds from drones, satellite imagery, communication intercepts, and human intelligence assets positioned throughout the training area. Her analytical mind processed information with the efficiency that had made her exceptional in Marine Corps intelligence. But now she was applying those skills to keep her teammates alive in the most demanding training environment imaginable. Alpha 6, this is Overwatch, Sarah responded, her voice calm despite the complexity of the tactical situation. Enemy patrol patterns show 3-man teams rotating every 47 minutes through your sector. Next rotation window opens in 12 minutes. Optimal movement time for undetected advance to Building 23. Through thermal imaging, she watched Alpha Team move through the urban maze with precision that seemed almost choreographed. Her guidance allowed them to avoid enemy contact while advancing toward their primary objective, a suspected command center where terrorist leadership was believed to be coordinating operations. Simultaneously, Sarah was coordinating Bravo Team's approach to a heavily defended compound containing civilian hostages. The mock enemy forces, played by experienced military instructors, had established overlapping fields of fire and prepared positions that made traditional assault approaches virtually suicidal. Bravo Team, hold position, Sarah commanded urgently, studying intelligence reports that had just been updated. Communication intercepts indicate enemy reinforcements moving to your sector. I'm tracking 8 additional combatants approaching from the northeast. Recommend alternate approach via the drainage system. Staff Sergeant Williams, Bravo Team Leader, immediately acknowledged her guidance. Overwatch, can you provide real-time updates on reinforcement movements while we reposition? Affirmative, Bravo. I have continuous surveillance on all enemy movements. The drainage tunnel will give you concealed approach to within 50 meters of the target building, but timing is critical. You'll have a 14-minute window before the next enemy sweep. What distinguished Sarah's coordination from previous training cycles was her ability to think several moves ahead, like a chess master anticipating opponent strategies. She wasn't just responding to immediate threats. She was predicting enemy behavior patterns, identifying tactical opportunities, and orchestrating complex operations that utilized each team's specific capabilities. On day 3 of the exercise, Charlie Team encountered the scenario that had historically resulted in the highest casualty rates. A booby-trapped building containing both hostages and explosive devices, with enemy snipers covering all approach routes. Previous teams had either accepted heavy casualties attempting direct assault or failed to complete the rescue mission within time constraints. Sarah spent 6 hours analyzing the problem from every conceivable angle. She studied architectural blueprints, examined explosive device patterns from previous exercises, tracked sniper positioning through thermal imaging, and developed what she believed was an entirely new tactical approach. Charlie 6, this is Overwatch. I have a solution, but it requires precise timing and unconventional tactics. Sarah transmitted to Seaman Kowalski, Charlie Team's leader. We're listening, Overwatch. Standard approaches aren't working. Sarah outlined a complex 3-phase operation that would use diversionary tactics to draw sniper attention, while a separate element approached the building through underground utility tunnels she had identified in city planning documents. Meanwhile, her analysis of explosive device placement patterns suggested a safe corridor through the building that previous teams hadn't recognized. Charlie Team, the key is understanding that the enemy expects conventional assault patterns. We're going to use their expectations against them. The execution was flawless. Using Sarah's intelligence coordination, Charlie team created diversionary action that focused enemy attention on false approach routes, while the actual rescue team advanced undetected through the tunnel system. Her real-time analysis of explosive device patterns guided them through the building along a path that avoided all booby traps, and her coordination with drone surveillance allowed them to locate and extract all hostages without triggering a single alarm. By day 5, word of the unprecedented training success had reached Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. Senior officers began arriving to observe what was being called the most effective training exercise performance in SEAL history. Sarah's coordination had resulted in 0 casualties, 100% mission success rates, and tactical efficiency that exceeded anything previously achieved. "This is impossible," muttered Commander Phillips, a veteran SEAL officer observing from the command center. "Broken Arrow has never been completed without significant casualties. These results suggest either the exercise has been compromised, or we're witnessing a fundamental evolution in special operations capability." Captain Mitchell, who had been monitoring every aspect of the exercise, smiled with the satisfaction of a gambler whose impossible bet was paying off. "Commander, what you're witnessing is cognitive warfare at its finest. Martinez isn't just coordinating tactics, she's revolutionizing how we think about special operations leadership." The final day of Operation Broken Arrow required simultaneous coordination of all 3 teams in a complex urban warfare scenario with multiple objectives, time-critical decisions, and the highest stress levels the training program could generate. Enemy forces had been reinforced, civilian populations had become hostile, and equipment failures had been introduced to simulate real-world complications. Sarah orchestrated the final operation like a conductor leading a symphony orchestra. She coordinated drone strikes on enemy positions, guided teams through urban terrain using real-time intelligence analysis, managed communication between units operating on different frequencies, and adapted tactical plans instantaneously as situations changed. All teams, this is Overwatch. Final objectives achieved. Terrorist leadership neutralized, all hostages extracted, weapons caches secured, and 0 friendly casualties. Operation Broken Arrow complete 7 days ahead of the historical average. As the exercise concluded, Sarah realized she had achieved something unprecedented in SEAL training history. But more importantly, she had proven that Captain Mitchell's revolutionary approach to military leadership wasn't just theoretically sound, it was tactically superior to traditional methods. The impossible had become inevitable, and the woman, who couldn't complete a rope climb, had just redefined excellence in the world's most elite military training program. The culminating exercise of SEAL training had been designed by the most devious tactical minds in the special operations community with one specific purpose: to break even the most elite candidates. Operation Prometheus was legendary among military training circles, a 72 our urban warfare nightmare that simulated every conceivable challenge a SEAL team might face in modern combat. Previous training cycles had averaged 60% casualty rates and mission failure, with even successful teams emerging psychologically and physically shattered. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez sat in the Advanced Intelligence Coordination Center, surrounded by 12 high-definition monitors, displaying real-time feeds from across the massive training complex. This was at the final examination that would determine whether Captain Mitchell's revolutionary experiment had created the future of special operations, or merely delayed the inevitable recognition that some barriers existed for valid reasons. The scenario was breathtakingly complex. A terrorist organization had seized control of an entire section of the urban training facility, taking over 40 civilian hostages, establishing command centers in multiple locations, and threatening to detonate radiological dispersal devices unless their demands were met. Sarah's 3 SEAL teams had 72 hours to infiltrate the area, locate and neutralize terrorist leadership, secure all weapons of mass destruction, rescue hostages without casualties, and extract without detection all while operating against enemy forces played by the most experienced military instructors available. This is Overwatch to all teams. Sarah's voice was steady, despite the magnitude of the challenge before her. Operation Prometheus is now active. You are cleared to begin insertion sequences. Remember, every decision we make in the next 72 hours will determine whether we're remembered as heroes or cautionary tales. The first 12 hours tested every aspect of Sarah's analytical capabilities. Intelligence reports flooded her command center from multiple sources. Drone surveillance revealing enemy movement patterns, communication intercepts suggesting terrorist plans, human intelligence assets providing insights into civilian locations, and satellite imagery showing structural changes to buildings that might indicate booby traps or fortified positions. But this exercise was different from previous challenges. The enemy forces weren't following predictable patterns. They were adapting to Sarah's tactics, learning from her coordination methods, and actively working to counter her strategic advantages. For the first time since her transformation, Sarah found herself facing opponents who were specifically trying to neutralize her intellectual superiority. Overwatch, this is Alpha 6, came the urgent voice of Petty Officer Chun. Enemy forces have altered their patrol patterns since our last intelligence update. They're no longer following the 47-minute rotation. It looks like they're adapting to our operational rhythm. Sarah studied multiple intelligence feeds, her mind racing as she recognized the tactical implications. The enemy instructors were simulating adaptive adversaries' opponents who learned from previous encounters and modified their behavior accordingly. This was the ultimate test of cognitive warfare. Could she outthink enemies who were actively trying to outthink her? Alpha 6, copy that. I'm seeing the pattern changes across all sectors. Enemy forces are demonstrating adaptive behavior. They're studying our methods and adjusting accordingly. We need to evolve our approach in real time. For the next 6 hours, Sarah engaged in what could only be described as intellectual combat. Every tactical decision became a chess move in a game where the rules were constantly changing. She developed false patterns to mislead enemy analysis, created diversionary operations to mask her true objectives, and coordinated deception plans. That would make her opponents believe they understood her tactics, while she pursued entirely different strategies. 24 hours into the exercise, the first major crisis emerged. Bravo team, attempting to rescue hostages from a heavily fortified compound, triggered what appeared to be a terrorist dead man switch system. According to the scenario, the terrorists would begin executing hostages every hour unless specific demands were met. Overwatch, this is Bravo 6. Staff Sergeant Williams transmitted with barely controlled urgency. We have a problem. Our breach attempt has triggered hostage execution protocols. We need immediate guidance on preventing civilian casualties. Sarah's mind shifted into overdrive, processing tactical information at lightning speed. She had thermal imaging showing hostage locations, communication intercepts revealing terrorist decision-making processes, and architectural analysis suggesting structural vulnerabilities. But most importantly, she had something her opponents didn't expect: the ability to think beyond conventional tactical parameters. All teams, this is Overwatch. The hostage execution threat changes our entire operational approach. We're going to execute a synchronized deception operation that will make the enemy believe we're retreating while actually positioning for simultaneous strikes on all terrorist positions. What followed was the most complex military coordination of Sarah's career. She orchestrated an elaborate deception plan that involved fake radio communications, diversionary movements designed to be detected by enemy surveillance, and the careful positioning of her teams for a coordinated assault that would happen so quickly that terrorists wouldn't have time to execute hostages. Alpha Team, begin false withdrawal procedures. Make sure your movement is visible to enemy surveillance. We want them to believe we're pulling back. Bravo Team, maintain current position, but prepare for rapid assault. Charlie Team, you're going to be our ace in the whole approach from the industrial sector, using the utility tunnels I've identified. For 8 hours, Sarah maintained deception while coordinating the most complex tactical operation she had ever attempted. She managed fake communications designed to mislead enemy intelligence, coordinated real movements that would position her teams for success, and analyzed enemy behavior patterns to identify the optimal moment for synchronized assault. All teams. This is Overwatch. Execute Operation Symphony in 3.2. Execute. The synchronized assault was flawless. Using Sarah's intelligence coordination, all 3 teams struck terrorist positions simultaneously from directions the enemies hadn't anticipated, using approaches they hadn't detected, with timing so precise that no terrorist had opportunity to harm hostages. Alpha Team neutralized the command center, Bravo Team secured the hostage compound, and Charlie Team captured the weapons of mass destruction, all within a 7-minute window. But the exercise wasn't over. The final phase required Sarah to coordinate extraction operations while enemy reinforcements attempted to prevent team withdrawal. This was where previous training cycles had suffered their highest casualty rates. The adrenaline and stress of successful mission completion often led to tactical mistakes during extraction. Sarah's coordination during the extraction phase demonstrated the full evolution of her capabilities. She anticipated enemy reinforcement patterns, identified extraction routes that avoided enemy strength, and coordinated covering fire that allowed all teams to withdraw without detection. Real-time analysis turned what should have been a fighting withdrawal into an invisible disappearance. 72 hours after Operation Prometheus began, Sarah's teams emerged from the training area with results that stunned even Captain Mitchell. 100% mission success, 0 casualties, all objectives achieved ahead of schedule, and tactical execution that exceeded every previous performance in SEAL training history. As news of the unprecedented success spread throughout the special operations community, Sarah realized she had achieved something that transcended personal vindication. She had proven that cognitive warfare wasn't just the future of special operations, it was the present reality that would determine success or failure in modern military conflict. Standing in the command center surrounded by the evidence of her tactical triumph, Sarah Martinez understood that she had just redefined what it meant to be an elite warrior in the 21st century. The woman who couldn't complete a rope climb had become the strategic mastermind who would change military thinking forever. The graduation ceremony at Naval Special Warfare Training had never seen anything like this. Senior military officials from across the Pentagon filled the normally Spartan auditorium, accompanied by representatives from Allied Special Operations forces who had flown in specifically to witness what was being called the most significant evolution in military training since World War II. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez stood among her teammates, not as the physically strongest candidate, but as something far more valuable, the strategic mastermind who had fundamentally changed how the military understood leadership, capability, and the future of warfare itself. Admiral Richardson, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, approached the podium with an expression that mixed profound satisfaction with barely contained amazement. In his 30-year career, he had overseen thousands of SEAL graduations, but none had attracted this level of attention from the highest echelons of military leadership. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Richardson began, his voice carrying across the packed auditorium, "we are witnessing a historic moment in special operations training. The performance statistics achieved by Training Unit Alpha under Lieutenant Martinez's intelligence coordination represent not just an improvement in tactical effectiveness, but a complete revolution in how we conceptualize military leadership in the modern era. He gestured to a massive display screen showing unprecedented training statistics. 0 casualties across all major exercises, 100% mission success rates, tactical efficiency metrics that exceeded previous records by margins that seemed impossible, and innovation in special operations methodology that was already being studied by military academies worldwide. These results aren't just numbers, the Admiral continued. They represent a fundamental shift from industrial-age warfare to information-age combat. Lieutenant Martinez has proven that cognitive warfare, the ability to process complex information, coordinate multiple assets, and make strategic decisions under extreme pressure, is not just valuable in modern special operations. It is essential. Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders as she listened to Admiral Richardson's words. 4 months earlier, she had been on the verge of dismissal, convinced that her failures proved women didn't belong in special operations. Now she was being celebrated as the architect of a new era in military thinking. Captain Mitchell, the visionary commander who had bet his career on Sarah's potential, stepped forward to present her with something unprecedented, a newly created designation that had been approved by Pentagon leadership just 3 days earlier. Lieutenant Martinez, he announced, you are hereby designated as the first cognitive warfare specialist in naval special warfare history, with authority to develop training protocols that will be implemented across all special operations communities. The audience erupted in applause, but Sarah's mind was already racing ahead to the implications of this moment. Her success hadn't just saved her military career, it had created an entirely new career field that would attract the most analytically gifted minds to special operations service. Petty Officer Chun, the point man who had once doubted her tactical leadership, stepped forward with a broad smile. Ma'am, I want to officially request assignment to your operational unit. After working under your coordination, I can't imagine going back to traditional tactical leadership models. His sentiment was echoed by every member of her training unit. Staff Sergeant Williams shook her hand with genuine respect. Martinez, you didn't just save our lives during training. You made us better warriors. The tactical awareness you've given us is something we'll carry for the rest of our careers. Seaman Kowalski, the young football player from Ohio, who had initially struggled to understand Sarah's analytical approach, now spoke with the enthusiasm of a convert. Ma'am, what? You've taught us about information processing and strategic thinking has completely changed how I understand military operations. This is the future of warfare. But the most significant moment came when Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, the gruff instructor who had documented every one of Sarah's early failures, approached with something Sarah had never expected to see from him: humility. Martinez, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. For 14 years, I've been training warriors using methods designed for wars we fought decades ago. You've shown me that the battlefield has evolved beyond physical dominance to cognitive supremacy. I've submitted a request to Naval Special Warfare Command to be retrained in your coordination methods. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah found herself surrounded by military leaders, eager to understand how her success could be replicated across other training programs. General Morrison from Army Special Operations Command had already proposed a joint training initiative. Colonel Patterson from Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance wanted to integrate her analytical methods into their selection process. Even international allies were requesting access to what was being called the Martinez Protocol. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Sarah's former mentor from Marine Corps intelligence, and now a Pentagon senior analyst, pulled her aside for a private conversation. Sarah, what you've accomplished transcends military training. You've proven that cognitive Diversity isn't just politically correct policy, it's tactical superiority. The implications for military recruitment, training, and operational effectiveness are staggering. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Sarah received a handwritten letter from General Patricia Collins, the first woman to command a special operations task force in combat, who had followed Sarah's progress through unofficial channels. Lieutenant Martinez, the letter read, "Your success has vindicated every woman who has ever been told she doesn't belong in military leadership. But more importantly, you've proven that true leadership isn't about conforming to existing models. It's about forcing those models to evolve. You haven't just broken barriers, you've made them irrelevant." 6 months after graduation, Sarah found herself in a classified location, coordinating real special operations missions that she couldn't discuss, but whose success rates spoke volumes about the effectiveness of cognitive warfare approaches. Her teammates, many of them veterans of traditional SEAL training, had adapted to her coordination methods with enthusiasm that bordered on reverence. During a rare moment of downtime, Sarah video called her family back in Texas. Her father, the Vietnam veteran who had worried about his daughter's place in special operations, could barely contain his pride. "Sarah, the whole town knows what you've accomplished. You've shown the world that our military is strong, not because we all think the same way, but because we're smart enough to think differently." Her younger sister, now a senior in high school, had decided to pursue a career in military intelligence. After watching Sarah's transformation, "You've shown me that being different isn't a weakness, it's a superpower, if you're brave enough to use it." As Sarah reflected on her journey from failure to triumph, she realized that Captain Mitchell's single order, "Stop trying to be something you're not," had done more than save her military career. It had revolutionized military thinking about leadership, capability, and the future of warfare itself. The woman who couldn't complete a rope climb had become the strategic architect of modern special operations. Her story was now required reading in military academies worldwide, studied, not as an exception to traditional leadership models, but as evidence that those models needed fundamental revision. Years later, as Sarah coordinated increasingly complex real-world operations, she would smile remembering that moment of despair on Coronado Beach, when she had questioned whether some barriers were meant to be broken. She had learned the most important lesson of her military career. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't strength, speed, or courage. It's the mind that sees possibilities where others see only limitations. The barriers hadn't just been broken. They had been completely redefined, creating new pathways for every warrior who would follow in Sarah's footsteps, and proving that the future of military excellence belonged to those brave enough to lead differently.